All right, well, we'll go ahead and get things kicked off here. I want to thank everyone who's hopped on here today for joining us. I recognize many of the names as current mentors, former mentors, so appreciate you making the time to be here, and some community stakeholders as well. We appreciate everyone for joining us, and we're excited to take just about 15-20 minutes today to share with you some data on how Wilson County is doing in the tnAchieves, Tennessee Promise space, and some of the work that our organization is doing across the state to positively impact student outcomes. So really appreciate you taking this time, and excited to share with you some of this progress that we're making. My name is Tyler Ford. I currently serve as Director of Mentors with tnAchieves. Like I said, many of you I know I've exchanged emails with before, met, so excited to have you on here today. A couple quick housekeeping things. We're going to go through today's presentation. If you don't mind to keep yourself muted as we go through it, just for clarity of sound purposes. But if you do have any questions, I'll save a couple times throughout the presentation to take those questions and dive in and make sure you leave today feeling like you understand the data and you understand the impact that we're having. So with that said, really where I want to start is just by providing a little bit of background on the work that tnAchieves does. So tnAchieves is a nonprofit organization that partners with the state of Tennessee to administer the Tennessee Promise Scholarship in 90 of the state's 95 counties. What that effectively means is that in those counties, we are making sure students are up to date on their deadlines, making sure that students are meeting requirements to stay eligible for Tennessee Promise and stay in the college going pipeline. That is essentially what we're doing in those counties on a day-to-day basis. Since our program began in 2008, we've been lucky enough to serve more than 440,000 students across the state. We've worked with 71,000 volunteers, and we have the chance each and every year to serve 600 high schools and 67 eligible post-secondary institutions. So certainly the scope and the nature of our work, we're able to impact a lot of students, a lot of communities, and we're excited to be able to continue doing that into the new year. So looking at kind of the individual components of Tennessee Promise, the work that tnAchieves does. Tennessee Promise is, of course, kind of the banner piece of our work, right? I think it's the piece that most people are familiar with, most people have heard of before, and it certainly brings a lot of students to our program. Tennessee Promise is, of course, the state's last dollar scholarship opportunity that provides the chance for high school seniors anywhere in Tennessee to enroll in community college or technical college and do so tuition and mandatory fee free. That's an opportunity that not every student in every state across the country has the chance to do, but our seniors in Tennessee do have that opportunity, and it certainly sets them apart in that sense. One of the things we know, though, is that financial supports for students are critical. It makes a huge difference in their engagement in the college going process. However, many of those students are going to be the first in their family to enroll in college, and as a result, they need a little bit extra help in the process. That's where that mentor comes into play. This is someone from their community who commits about an hour a month just to support them and to make sure they have the resources at hand to ensure they're successful in the college going process. That's what that mentoring role is all about. It's also important to us at tnAchieves that every student that participates and receives Tennessee Promise has a little bit of skin in the game. You know, if we're going to give students the resources to go to college, whether it be financial or local support systems in the form of a mentor, we want to make sure that they have a little bit of skin in the game. And that's exactly where this community service piece comes into play. We ask that every student commit 8 hours per semester to stay eligible for Tennessee Promise and give back to the community in the form of community service. I'm going to share a lot more data on this community service piece here in just a couple minutes, but it's certainly a big piece of our program. It's one that's been with us since the beginning, and it will remain with us for many, many years to come, I'm sure. We're also working to positively impact student outcomes once they start college. Getting them in the door and getting them to start their post-secondary career is certainly important, but we also want to make sure that those students are successful in actually graduating. They're successful in getting that credential in hand. A couple things we're doing to impact this space, one of which is summer programs. we know that some of our most at-risk students are those students who are maybe testing into learning support classes in the fall, maybe need a little bit of help in their first semester. So we've created programs, some are 3 weeks long, some are 10 weeks long, to help those students over the summer months potentially test out of those learning support classes. It's a great opportunity for them to potentially get a leg up on their fall semester, but even if those students aren't able to test out, we know that they're leaving the program, improving on their scores, and feeling more prepared to start college. So these students have that time over the summer to build college going comfort. That way, when they start in the fall, they're not starting and worrying about anxiety, worrying about first day nerves. Instead, they've gotten that perspective and that experience over the summer months so that they can hit the ground running in the fall. So certainly an impactful program there. And we've got some numbers on both of these pieces actually to share in just a few minutes. But we also have a newer complete program. Within the past 10 years or 2 years, excuse me, we've introduced a complete program that takes some of our most economically at-risk students and pairs them with a member of our staff who is proactively reaching out to them throughout their college career. This is their full-time job, is connecting with students and building these relationships. It's our thought that if we can identify student hurdles and identify student obstacles before they cause a student to drop out or stop going to class, we can help in ensuring they're not only retaining, but graduating. And we've got some exciting data to share on that program success here in just a couple minutes. But before we get into Wilson County specific data and data on those programs, what I do want to provide is a little bit of snapshot on the counties we serve, as well as the students we serve, and a little bit of background information on them. In terms of our reach, in terms of the communities we serve, like I said earlier, we serve 90 counties across the state. 74 of those are considered to be rural counties, and 35 of them are at-risk or distressed counties, and that's according to the Department of Economic and Community Development. We currently serve over 600 high schools as well, and 67 colleges. I think the really interesting piece here, though, is the numbers on where our students are going to college. 11% will choose to enroll at a TCAT, or a Tennessee College of Applied Technology. This number is actually up since Tennessee Promise was introduced, and we hope to continue to see it increase. The TCATs especially are a fantastic path for many students. They offer the opportunity to go graduate high school, get a degree or credential fairly quickly, and then enter the workforce in a good paying job. So a fantastic opportunity for many students, and we would love to see even more take advantage of this in the coming years. We also have 79% of our students enrolling at a community college and 10% enrolling at a four-year college pursuing an associate's degree. So certainly as you look at this, community colleges are the popular choice amongst our students, but we're seeing more students take advantage of our colleges of applied technology. And as I said, we would love to see that increase even more in the coming months. We see many students as well, as we look at that four-year number, taking advantage of Cumberland College there as well. So a lot of great options for students. We also want to kind of highlight a little bit about the scope of these work and how many students we're able to serve. We currently serve each year about 60,000 students across the state. That represents 89% of high school seniors across the state. 78% of all first-time freshmen at Tennessee community colleges are Tennessee Achieves students, and 86% of all Tennessee community college graduates are Tennessee Achieves students. So what these two data points show particularly is that a lot of the students starting at our community colleges and ultimately graduating at our community colleges are students who are at some point impacted by Tennessee Achieves programming. And we love to be able to feature that because, you know, having so many students start and finish at our colleges that are impacted by our programs, certainly something we're proud of. Speaking to the students themselves, 56% of our students are going to be eligible for federal financial aid, meaning they tend to fall into the low income category. 40% will be the first in their family to enroll in college. This student particularly, a low income first generation college student, has always been and probably will always be our target student at Tennessee Achieves. We want to make sure that that student has supports, has resources, and has the programs necessary to succeed in their college going career. So these are numbers that are, you know, really always on our mind as a team. 51% of our students also are majoring in a health science or STEM related fields that certainly right now are critical. So happy to see so many students partaking in these specific majors and fields. Speaking to the cost of these programs, $32 million is the cost to annually fund the Tennessee Promise scholarships that go out. Now, the Tennessee Achieves annual operating cost, our cost, is $2.5 million, which when you consider that we're able to impact and work with 60,000 students each and every year, on top of active students who are in college, 89% of all seniors across the state, that's a total that we're pretty proud of. You know, to be able to impact that many students at a relatively low cost is something we like to reflect on. We're proud of that, and we hope to continue to be able to do that for students and communities across the state. Now, I do want to pause for a second before I shift into this local data and just quickly ask if there's any questions or anything I can address really quick. All right, well, I'll keep going with some Wilson County data here. And there's a couple really exciting and positive things that I wanted to highlight for you here. First of which being the FAFSA file rate. So as you can see, the statewide FAFSA file rate was 86%. Locally in Wilson County, it was 87%. So outpacing the state by just a little bit. And as you know, if you don't, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. This is one of the obstacles that students face in the college going process. The FAFSA is difficult to complete. It takes paperwork, documents, time to do. Traditionally, it is a hurdle for students. So to see locally 87% of your students filing this document, especially in a year with a global pandemic, I would count that as a win. Speaking to community service as well, locally in Wilson County, 68,690 is the total number of community service hours completed by Tennessee Achieves students. And that's against a statewide total of about 3.3 million hours. One of the great things about this program, and I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough, is the fact that students participating in this program have given back nearly 70,000 hours of volunteer work locally, 3 million across the state. Certainly having skin in the game is a big part of this, right? Having students give back to stay eligible and receive Tennessee Promise funding is an important piece. But honestly as well, we just love to see students getting out there, getting involved in their community and giving back this time because they're probably giving back at higher rates than they would be otherwise. And we're happy to be able to see that. We're happy to be able to facilitate that here at Tennessee Achieves. Diving in a little bit more to some Wilson County numbers, you had 1,686 students apply for Tennessee Promise last year. 507 will enroll using Tennessee Promise. And again, some really positive numbers here are around retention and graduation, because Wilson County students are retaining at a rate about 4 points higher than the statewide number, and they're graduating at a rate about 4 points higher as well. So 71% of your students are retaining and 39% are graduating. So I'll tell you too, at Tennessee Achieves, we're always working to increase these numbers locally, statewide, but in Wilson County to have students outpacing those statewide numbers is certainly a win. And I do want to share with you a little more insight into what those retention numbers represent and how Tennessee Achieves students are retaining compared to their peers who aren't receiving this support and aren't participating in this program. 67% of students at a Tennessee Promise eligible institution retain. And that's 14 points higher than their peers who are not participating in the Tennessee Achieves program. Tennessee Achieves students at any college are retaining at a rate about 21 points higher than their peers who are not participating in this program. I also want to highlight your graduation numbers, because Tennessee Achieves students at community colleges are retaining at a rate about 16% higher than their peers who are not a part of this program. Great wins here, and I think great reflections of how these supports and the Tennessee Promise Scholarship are positively impacting student outcomes. You know, when a student is receiving the financial support, the non-financial supports, participating in these programs, what they're able to do is really focus more on being a successful college student, staying in school and making sure they're successful academically. They're worrying less about, you know, how am I going to get the supports I need? How am I going to pay for college? And these programs, as we can see, both in retention and graduation, are having a positive impact. I mentioned earlier that we're offering additional programs for students beyond just the scholarship support, the mentor support, to ensure that students have layers of supports and programs around them to find college-going success. We've got those summer programs and that complete coaching model, which, as you can see here, is without a doubt having a positive impact on student retention. For example, Students participating in one of our summer programs are 34% more likely to retain from year 1 to year 2 than their peers who don't participate in one of these programs. Students who are coached, part of that complete program that we offer, they're 23% more likely to retain than their peers who are not coached. We also have a new program in Knox County that takes some local dollars in Knox County to offer coaching for all Knox County students, as well as some additional financial support to support students who may find themselves in a situation where they need a little bit of additional financial support. Students who are part of that Knox Promise program are 42% more likely to retain. So, I'll tell you at tnAchieves, we are always looking for additional programs and additional layers of support that we can add to ensure students are staying in school and graduating. And that's exactly what these programs are. But as we look ahead to 2022, one of the biggest opportunities and one of the biggest challenges we all face is this college going rate. As we look at the statewide graph, you can see that when Tennessee Promise was introduced in 2014, college going across the state of Tennessee really shot up. We saw an increase of about 4 to 5% there. And it's remained pretty steady there for the years thereafter. But with the pandemic, we saw a pretty big dip in college going across the state. And in Wilson County, your dip not too bad, about 1 percentage point. But still, we want to work across the state and in all the communities we serve to make sure that the college going rate pivots and starts going back upward. And the progress of the past 5 years, 6 years isn't lost because of the past year as we've been battling the pandemic. And this is something that tnAchieves cannot do alone. We are really fortunate to have a lot of great high school partners, a lot of great post-secondary partners, and community support in accomplishing these goals and achieving the data that I've shared here today. But we want to make sure that every student continues to be supported and we make this pivot relevant to the college going rate. And one of the best ways that you can do that is by serving as a mentor. Recognize many of the names on here as those who have served as mentors in the past. And I want to just kind of spend a couple minutes as we wrap up today's presentation, talking about the mentoring role and talking about how it's going to continue to impact students in 2022. So mentoring in 2022 is going to look similar to how it has in the past, with a couple slight changes to address kind of the new normal that we're in. We're going to continue to ask all mentors to call, text, and email their students, as well as use tnAchieves Connect, our new virtual mentoring platform, to connect with their students. We're also going to this year allow mentors the choice between meeting in person with your students and staying virtual with your students, whatever your preference as a mentor. We're going to offer open house style sessions in the communities we serve, where mentors can gather with their students, meet with them face to face, and build that connection early on in your time serving students. So we understand that mentors may have different preferences, and we want to meet those preferences and try to accommodate whatever you may feel comfortable with. So we're excited to get underway with 2022, and we're excited to see mentors and students meeting in person again in the near future, hopefully. All of this, though, is going to continue to take just 12 hours per year, or 1 hour per month. We know that many of our volunteers are very busy, have a lot of different time commitments, and we always want to be respectful of that. So 1 hour per month is the time commitment for mentoring. One thing that's never going to change about our mentoring program are the 3 essential roles. We always ask that mentors serve as a task manager for their students and as a resource for their students and as an encourager for their students. Being a task manager is just about making sure that students are on top of their requirements, meeting their deadlines, and staying up to date on their requirements. Being a resource is really for that student who may have nowhere else to turn in the college going process, may need a little bit of extra support. And you can be that trusted individual that the student turns to when they have a question or they have a concern. But I think ultimately in 2022, particularly, the encourager role is going to be the difference maker for our students. And it's going to be how we make the pivot on that college going rate statistic we just saw. Ultimately, students need someone who can be positive for them, someone who can lift them up and help them over obstacles. And that's what encouragement is all about. This is also the piece that our team can never replace. We serve more than 60,000 students annually. We cannot provide the personal support, personal encouragement to every student like we would like to be able to. But with 9,000 volunteer mentors in the communities providing that encouragement, we can make that goal a reality. So that's certainly something we can never replace. And it's one of the most fundamental roles of a mentor. And I see we have a question. I'll come to it here in just a second. But I do want to just highlight here in Wilson County, we need 256 mentors locally. So certainly a significant number of mentors to make sure every student is supported locally and has access to that individual who's their resource and their encourager through the college going process. If you would like to continue as a mentor, if you would like to apply as a mentor for the first time, you can visit tnAchieves.org/mentors and apply by December 3rd of 2021. As always, we'll provide you with a handbook, we'll provide you with a training, and we'll try to make this as easy as a process as we can, because again, we can't do this work without you. And the mentoring role really is a critical piece of our work, and it's at the heart of our work. But I do want to stress as well, there are other ways that you can support Tennessee Achieves. You know, we're lucky to be able to share this story with groups like this, and we want to be able to continue to do that. It's a big part of how we've been able to work with 71,000 volunteers and 440,000 students. So certainly becoming a mentor is one great way to support our work, but you can also connect Tennessee Achieves within the community. If you know of a group who might be interested in hearing about this local data, if you know of a group who might just be interested in the Tennessee Achieves story, send an email to our team, mentors@tnachieves.org, and we would love to set up a date or a time or share with you resources that you can plug into your community and kind of spread the word about. You can also just tell someone about Tennessee Promise. If you know a student, make sure they're filing their Tennessee Promise application. If you know of someone looking for a way to give back in the community, tell them about the mentoring role. One thing that I think is incredibly powerful in our ability to serve communities is word of mouth. Current mentors, current stakeholders who go out and tell their friends about this program and their experience with the program, that's tremendously impactful. And it's been tremendously helpful in achieving some of the data outcomes and some of the progress we've seen across the state. So as we conclude, I want to thank everyone who's hopped on here today to hear this data update, and everyone who's participated in this program for all these years. It's a big part of how we've had this success, and we hope to continue to be able to serve communities and see progress in many, many years to come. As you can see on the screen, there's my contact information. If I can ever do anything to help, just send me an email or give me a call. I'm more than happy to help however I can. But again, I just want to thank you for joining us here today. And I'm happy now to spend a little bit of time answering whatever questions you may have. You can type them in the chat or just unmute yourself.
Tyler, it's Byron Camp.
Hi, Mr. Camp. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
The Connect platform was new this year. Is that correct?
It was, yes, first year.
From your viewpoint, how successful was it?
You know, that is an excellent question. I think that Connect has been really successful in kind of bridging this gap from what we always knew, which was in-person mentoring, in-person everything, to an entirely virtual space. What we've seen is that, and I don't have it right in front of me right now, but there have been hundreds of thousands of messages sent on the platform. We've seen, I want to say right now it's a little bit over like a third of all mentors and students have connected on the platform. So, you know, I think there's certainly opportunities to improve on Connect in the year to come. We learned a lot about it over the past year. But in terms of making sure we had an environment where mentors and students could still connect, I think it served its purpose. But, you know, one thing I would say is, you know, nothing can really replace entirely, I think, the ability to meet in person. And that's why, as we look ahead in 2022, we're going to offer some form of in-person meeting, because for many students, for many mentors, having that environment and that forum is important.
Thank you. I found that texting has been pretty effective with the students I have.
And one thing I'll say is this too, you know, texting, I think, is always still the most consistent and easy way to break through to students initially. We found that mentors had some success when they connected with their students first over text and then eventually routed back to Connect as kind of the consistent means of communication. But texting is probably always going to be the best way to initially establish contact with students for certain. I think Connect was really helpful too, in that it allowed for a video chat platform, a scheduling platform where mentors could use that to see their students face to face. Any other questions that we can help with? All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I will go ahead and wrap up today's conversation. But I do just want to thank you all again for joining us today. And again, if I can help at all, my contact information is on the screen. So please don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you all for hopping on.